Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another great show for you today. First, a family member of the Idaho murder victim suggests there were post-mortem injuries. Wait till you hear this. Sean Diddy Do It Combs announces his intent to appeal his conviction amid White House denials of commutation rumors. Brilliant. The Louvre's priceless treasures pilfered in a 7-minute farce, likely doomed to oblivion. The Bond of Sisters, a tale of deception and consequences. We have This Day in Legal History, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Hit that little bell for notifications. And yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Before we get to the docket, let me remind you to do a couple things. First, go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do a background search on as many people as your heart desires here in the United States. All right? You get this report, you literally type it in, all right? You type in the name, you get asked a couple of questions. It does this magic work through computers. It searches all these databases across the country, and you get a report emailed to you while you wait, and you can get updates. And you're going to get social media presence, email addresses, phone numbers, property. You're going to find out how many cars they've owned over the years. You're going to find out if they have a criminal history, and are they on one of those registries that you don't probably want to date somebody if they're on. Those types of things, ladies and gentlemen. It is dating malpractice if you don't get a background search on somebody that you're going to go on a date with, all right? Googling, not enough. CrimeTalkSearch.com is where you need to go. You'll be happy you did. Now, let me also remind you, I told you a couple weeks ago we were going to get back in the merch business, and I'm telling you, this stuff is flying off the shelves. Our little tags there, yes. The t-shirts, if you got any suggestions that you think are appropriate, let us know. We'll be more than happy to put them up. But this is the one that's really selling. Just saw a couple of them going out today. And if you go to the link below, you can do that. And also, you can get your Baked in Colorado CBD dog treats as well. So go check it out. All in one convenient location. We're here about convenience. I go out and find all these stories for you to keep it convenient for you so you don't have to, because I know you're busy. I'm busy. I make the time to do it. So we bring it all to you, and then you listen to the facts. You decide what is true and what to remember. So let's go ahead and get to the docket. Tuesday, October 21st. Let's go ahead and open the record. First on the docket, Olivia Goncalves, the sister of slain University of Idaho student Kaylee Goncalves, indicated that certain injuries on her sister may have occurred after death rather than during an active struggle. The perpetrator, Bryan Kohberger. Now, Olivia shared these insights via a social media video referencing a catalog of evidence prepared by the prosecutors for a potential trial. Now, the evidence that I have not personally reviewed apparently encompasses some 26 distinct images documenting the injuries sustained by Kaylee Goncalves following the incident. Now, in her video, Olivia refrained from hypothesizing about Kohberger's intention, such as whether the actions were meant to inflict additional suffering, noting that the nature of these injuries appeared inconsistent with typical defensive wounds. So further details emerged regarding Kohberger's circumstances, including reports of difficulties during his incarcerations, as mentioned by Stephen Goncalves, obviously her father. Now, Olivia estimated that Kohberger remained at the crime scene where the 4 victims were present for approximately from 4 a.m. till 4:25, a duration she believes exceeded what was necessary for the crime. And she described her in-person discussions with the prosecutors as emotionally challenging and suggested that the prior consultations might have improved the whole process. Now, prosecutors informed her that additional judicial records are forthcoming, though not all the material from the state authorities or the FBI have been disclosed as of yet. According to the interviewer and the correspondent Bryan, Olivia appeared to gain a greater appreciation for the prosecutorial team following the meeting, despite ongoing family dissatisfaction with the plea agreement and the various aspects of the case management by the state officials. Now, Kohberger is currently serving a life sentence after entering a guilty plea in July of 2020, obviously for the murders, and will never get out of prison again. So I thought that this interview with Mr. Enton was very interesting. And I think some of the responses by Olivia Goncalves were also interesting, because it just goes to show you sometimes people don't really understand everything that's going on in the process. Now, as you know, as a private attorney, you have to provide so much information to your client, because it's all about them being able to make the right decisions. And I found it odd during the whole prosecution and near the end, when they said there was a plea deal, that the state did very little to explain what was going on. And I know they did that because they didn't want leaks, and they wanted the protection orders, the gag orders, I should say, to be more accurate, to include the family members, because they thought it was going to, jeopardize the integrity of the case. But near the end, if you explain what you're doing, just like to the public, you're like, oh, now I get it. Now that seems to make more sense, right? And so a lot of it is, when people in government or people in that position of authority are saying, I'm not going to tell you because I don't trust you. Trust us, all right? And then the word can go out as to what decisions were made. In this interview, Olivia describes how she believes that some of the wounds were almost like Kohberger, like maybe was experimentation as to what would cause the wound, or what it would look like if he poked somebody at a particular location. I'm telling you, there's a reason Bryan Kohberger fessed up and took a plea to 4 counts of murder, knowing he'll never get out of prison, plus the burglary count. And that's because he knew the evidence that was going to come out of trial, and he knew that jury was going to impose the death penalty. Interesting view. All right, next on the docket, Sean Diddy Combs. So Sean Diddy Do It Combs, the 55-year-old rap mogul, has signaled his intentions to appeal his recent conviction on the 2 charges of transportation for prostitution following his 8-week federal trial. Now, the development comes as the White House firmly denies reports suggesting that President Trump is considering commuting Combs' 50-month prison sentence. Now, on October 20th, Combs' attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, submitted a 2-page notice to the Federal District Court of New York indicating plans for an appeal. While filing did not specify the legal grounds, prior submissions for Combs' legal teams argued that the convictions under the Mann Act, a law they described as outdated and rarely enforced, do not apply to his actions. Detailed arguments supporting the appeal are expected in forthcoming filings. All you have to do is file the notice of appeal, and then they have to prepare the record, and it gets sent up to the federal court for the appellate filing, and then a briefing schedule is set. So it'll be probably another couple of years until the appeal is finalized. So the appeal will initially be reviewed by a 3-judge panel from the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And obviously Combs is going to remain incarcerated at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he has been held since his arrest. Transfer usually occurs within 45 to 60 days to an actual BOP facility once the Bureau of Prisons figures out the needs of Mr. Combs, what is going to fit best for him for, all the things about rehabilitation, education, treatment, anything along those lines. That's what the BOP has to consider when finding an appropriate placement for Mr. Combs, and of course, his sentencing. So, the judge sentenced Combs to 50 months in prison and imposed a $500,000 fine, accounting for approximately 1 year already served in pretrial detention. Combs faces roughly 3 additional years behind bars. Normally, what happens on any federal sentence, 85% of that sentence has to be served until you're eligible for federal supervised release, which is a fancy name for parole. Usually, the last 6 months are spent at a halfway house, of transitioning you back into the community and making sure that you can follow the rules. So, like I said, with his time that he's already received the pre-sentence confinement for, he will not serve that 5 years. Roughly about 3 more to go, assuming he doesn't get his sentence commuted. At sentencing, Combs' team advocated for a 14-month sentence, which would have resulted in just 2 more months of incarceration after his credit for pre-sentence confinement credit. Prosecutors, however, said, oh no, they thought 11 years in prison would have been appropriate. So the trial concluded back in July of this year with Combs' acquittal on the more severe charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. And, there were lots of sketches that came out during the trial. Many of them had Combs praying on his knees after the verdict. And his attorney reported that fellow inmates gave him a standing ovation upon his return to jail. In contrast, during the sentencing hearing, Combs was visibly emotional, reportedly weeping during his testimony or statement to the judge. That's what they call a statement in allocution. But guess what? A juror later expressed to ABC News that they thought the sentence seemed a little lenient, suggesting the maybe 10 years would have been a more appropriate sentence, giving them pending all the civil suits against Combs. So clearly the jurors, but juries don't understand the sentencing process. And I've had clients acquitted where they thought it was of a serious felony charge. And the jury thought what they were convicting him of was a felony, but it was in fact a misdemeanor. Jurors don't know. They don't get that. They don't get the sentencing guideline range because they're not supposed to be affected by anything other than did what was alleged take place and was it proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The jury's supposed to make their decision with neither passion nor prejudice towards either side. Just follow the facts and the law. Anyway, the defense argued that sentencing should focus solely on the conviction charges, excluding evidence from acquitted counts, but the judge ruled that all relevant conduct could be considered. Welcome to federal court, ladies and gentlemen. You can be acquitted and still be punished for the stuff that you were acquitted of. It's just the way it is. It's brutal in federal court. If you go to federal court, you hit the big time. Sean Combs did well in this. He should be thanking his attorneys. Hopefully he pays their attorney's fees promptly. Now, the White House denies a commutation of the sentence. Amid the appeal announcement, the White House has categorically denied a report by TMZ claiming that President Trump is contemplating commuting Combs' sentence potentially as early as this week. And TMZ cited a high-ranking White House official stated that Trump was vacillating on the decision despite some staff opposition and stood by their story following the denial. Now, Trump has previously addressed the possibility of clemency for Mr. Combs, and in May of this year, he indicated he would review the facts if mistreatment were evident. However, in August, Trump noted that the difficulty due to Combs' terrible statements during the 2020 election when Combs supported Joe Biden, straining their prior amicable relationship. Combs' legal team reportedly contacted White House officials shortly after sentencing to discuss clemency options. I guess is what you call a teachable moment. Yes, you don't want to burn bridges. You never know when you may need to cross a big, huge body of water. Anyway, the combined narrative underscores Combs' ongoing legal battles, blending his criminal appeals with the unverified political speculation. That's right. Representatives for Combs have not responded to requests for further comment. Next on the docket, how brilliant. The Louvre's priceless treasures pilfered in a 7-minute farce, likely doomed to oblivion. Well, isn't this just the cherry on top of France's illustrious security sundae? A band of so-called highly organized crooks waltzed into the Louvre, yes, the Louvre, the one swarming with tourists and supposedly fortified like a fortress, and made off with the haul of irreplaceable gems that might as well be confetti by now, shattered and scattered to the winds forever. So here's what happened on a lazy Sunday morning while hordes of sightseers snapped selfies with Mona Lisa's smirk. These audacious amateurs parked their scooters and a flatbed truck right outside the Apollo Gallery. Because nothing says subtle like propping up a massive ladder against a 17th century window and buzzing through the glass with angle grinders. 7 minutes flat. That's all it took for them to smash display cases and stuff their bags with glittering relics from France's royal past. We're talking tiaras dripping with sapphires from Queen Marie Amelia's set, an emerald necklace once gracing Marie Louise, Napoleon's second wife, and that showstopper brooch belonging to the Empress Eugenie, boasting a casual 2,400 diamonds. Oh, and they even tossed Eugenie's crown out the window like yesterday's trash, leaving it in pieces for the authorities to ponder. But wait, it gets better. Or should I say, more hilariously inept. The world's most visited museum, pulling in 30,000 gawkers a day, couldn't muster a single security guard to intervene. Alarms blared, but apparently only in some distant control room where the focus is on hurting visitors rather than, safeguarding national treasures. Police, they showed up fashionably late, just in time to watch the thieves zoom off scooters towards the highway, vanishing into the Parisian ether without a trace. Cue the crisis meeting. That's right. Interior Minister Laurent Nunez, Cultural Minister Rachida Dati, and Justice Minister Gerald Darmanin huddled up solemnly, admitted they failed, and presented a deplorable image of France. How refreshing, this rare burst of honesty. Darmanin even lamented the lack of close circuit TVs and the ease of busting through windows and cases. Meanwhile, the museum stage shuddered, refunds in hand as if a day off could erase the embarrassment. Prosecutors speculate these masterminds might be fencing the goods to some shady black market collector. But with no leads and foreign crime rings not yet ruled out, good luck with that. And let's not forget the political pearl clutching. President Emmanuel Macron thundered about an attack on our history, while right-wing firebrand Jordan Bardella called it an intolerable humiliation. Comparisons to the Notre Dame fires. Sure, because nothing screams national security tragedy like watching your crown jewels get wiped by a scooter-riding opportunist during construction work after staff had already protested understaffing months ago. In the end, these artifacts worth tens of millions are steeped in Napoleonic glory, could be dismantled for quick cash, lost to history's dumpster. Bravo, Louvre. Truly a performance worthy of the ages. If only the security had been as highly organized as the thieves. Wow, huge embarrassment. That's stuff they make movies about, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable. Next, because designer shoes are the real culprit. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't this a charming tale of accountability? A prosperous lady from Texas, purportedly navigating the roads while under the influence of both alcohol as well as some narcotics, tragically ended a gentleman's inaugural romantic evening by colliding with him. Now, in a stroke of genius, she's deflecting responsibility onto her fashionable footwear during her Houston manslaughter hearing. Christina Chambers stands accused in the courtroom for the unfortunate demise of 33-year-old Joseph McCullen back on that fateful April evening back in 2023. Now, as the proceedings commenced last Friday, her legal counsel ingeniously labeled the incident a peculiar mishap, attributing it to those pesky Christian Louis Vuitton stilettos allegedly jamming the accelerator. And let's not overlook the road's notorious bend, which has apparently claimed other victims because, of course, the curve is the true villain here, as her lawyer has so astutely pointed out. And one of the city's most treacherous turns, he proclaimed, as if that excuses everything. Prosecutors, however, paint a rather less flattering picture, detailing how Chambers indulged in a lively evening of venue hopping with companions, downing no fewer than 6 cocktails. They further allege cocaine involvement, courtesy of those convenient little packets discovered in her vehicle's rear and her handbag post-collision. Piloting her gleaming new sports car homeward with friends of an ungodly hour, she reportedly hit velocities approaching 70 miles per hour before veering onto the pavement where Mr. McMullen strolled with his companion. Eager to flaunt her speedy acquisition, the prosecutors quipped to the jurors how predictable for someone with toys like that. McMullen, a sound engineer with a passion for melodies, was savoring his debut outlining with Brianna Ilturo when disaster intervened. The pair had decided to conclude their evening with a leisurely stroll from pastries from a local donut spot. Clutching their treats and brews, they ambled back towards their vehicle around 2:30 a.m. Eternio testified to spotting the accelerating headlights barreling their way, sensing the vehicle's erratic path. Miraculously spared herself, she initially assumed McMullen had dodged the car too, until realizing something had brushed her side. In hindsight, she now believed it was her date being hurled 36 feet by the impact, as Chambers allegedly pressed on before embedding her car into a utility pole. McMullen perished instantly at the site. A local pool hall manager, Alfredo Ponce, also shared his account, rushing to the chaos as he'd done for prior incidents. This one, he emphasized, was unparalleled in severity, complete with a pervasive aroma of spirits from the wreckage. Police later confirmed her blood alcohol level hovered near quadruple the permissible threshold upon apprehension, roughly 60 minutes after the accident. Chambers denies the manslaughter allegations, which encompass claims of reckless velocity and vehicular mismanagement. Yet her opulent existence appears uninterrupted by the tragedy of looming consequences. She resides in her lavish $1.5 million abode alongside her former spouse, a hedge fund executive who initiated divorce proceedings mere days following her bail release. Bond conditions prohibit driving, except for employment, ban alcohol intake, and enforce an evening to morning curfew, restrictions that evidently haven't curtailed her panache for extravagance, including splurges at upscale retailers and hosting elegant celebrations for herself. These tidbits emerged in a multi-million-dollar civil action for wrongful death that were lodged by McMullen's kin against Chambers, her ex, and the establishments that purportedly fueled her that night. The suit lambasts the husband for gifting her the six-figure Porsche settled in currency just prior to the fatality, despite her alleged dependency on him financially and a purported track record of substance misuse, rendering her an unsuitable operator. He counters that she acquired it independently from share funds, denied any awareness of addiction issues, and insists he's never witnessed her impaired behind the wheel. Nonetheless, Chambers reportedly confided to medical professionals post-incident about her routine of 4 to 5 drinks bi-weekly. A companion from the vehicle that evening, in a sworn statement, branded her as an enthusiast of spirits and claimed her husband was privy to her habits, including repeated intoxicated drives, even in the new car. Another passenger recalled her boasting about the vehicle's prowess that very night. Remarkably, the ex admits to foregoing any push for rehabilitation, shrugging it off with, "I'm no physician. I don't meddle in mental health choices." The family's civil claim dates to the mid-2023, shortly after the divorce filing, and criminal proceedings bar references to the parallel lawsuit slated for its own hearing this coming next spring next year. How utterly convenient for maintaining the facade of innocence. Next on the docket, the bond of sisters. That's right, a tale of deception and consequence. In the quiet rural landscape of southern Minnesota, where rolling fields met narrow country roads, two sisters, Samantha and Sarah Peterson, shared a bond forged with the crucible of identical appearances and inseparable lives. Born just minutes apart, they had navigated childhood mischief and adult hardships together. Their similarities often blurred the lines between them, but on a fateful September evening back in 2023, that bond should be tested in ways neither could have foreseen, leading to tragedy, deception, and ultimately justice. So Samantha, the elder by mere moments, had always been the more impulsive of the pair. Struggling with a hidden addiction to methamphetamine, she often sought solace in late-night drives, the hum of her silver SUV cutting through the stillness. That night, under the influence and distracted, she veered into a shoulderless road near the town of Fillmore County. Ahead, an Amish buggy carried a family home from evening chores. Parents with their 4 children clad in simple attire, unaware of the peril that was approaching. collision was catastrophic. The SUV slammed into the rear of the buggy, splintering wood and hurtling the occupants into the dusk. Two young sisters, Wilma, age 7, and Irma, age 11, perished at the scene, their lives extinguished in an instant. The parents and the remaining siblings sustained severe injuries, forever altering the fabric of their close-knit community. In the chaotic aftermath, as sirens wailed and emergency lights pierced the night, Samantha panicked. Her bloodshot eyes and erratic behavior betrayed her impairment, but a desperate idea took root. Sarah, who lived nearby and had arrived swiftly upon hearing of the accident, bore an uncanny resemblance to her twin. Same auburn hair, same freckled complexion. With trembling hands, the sisters exchanged clothing in a secluded spot near the wreckage. Sarah, driven by a fierce loyalty and perhaps a misguided sense of protection, agreed to assume Samantha's identity. "I'll take the blame," she whispered, her voice steady despite the fear. "You're the one with everything to lose." When the police arrived, Sarah presented herself as the driver, confessing to the crash while Samantha slipped into the role as a concerned bystander. Initial investigators accepted this narrative. The twins' deception held, at least temporarily. Blood tests were drawn, and Sarah's clean results seemed to corroborate, simple if tragic, an accident. But cracks soon appeared. Witnesses recalled seeing only one woman flee the vehicle initially, and discrepancies in statements raised suspicions. Forensics evidence, including DNA from the driver's seat and the methamphetamine traces in Samantha's system from a later test, unraveled the ploy. Months of legal proceedings followed. Sarah, charged with aiding in the deception, pled guilty and was sentenced to 3 months in jail, followed by 4 years of probation. Her remorse was palpable in court. She spoke of her intent to shield her sister from the consequences of the addiction, not to evade justice for the victims. Samantha, facing the weight of her actions, eventually admitted her role. And in July of this year, she pled guilty to criminal vehicular homicide and operation under the influence. Standing before the judge in a Fillmore County courtroom, she expressed profound regret, her voice breaking as she acknowledged the irreparable harm inflicted on the Amish family. "No words can mend what I have broken," she said. The court, balancing accountability and the complexities of her addiction, sentenced her to 4 years in prison, a term that reflected both the gravity of the loss and the deceit that compounded it. Now, as Samantha began her incarceration, Sarah visited often. Their conversation, a mix of reflection and resolve. The tragedy had severed lives and tested their sisterhood, but it also illuminated the perils of unchecked impulses and the limits of loyalty. In the end, the story of the Peterson twins serves as a somber reminder. Bonds of blood may endure, but truth, once obscured, demands its reckoning. Tragic case. And next on the docket, this day in legal history, on October 21st, 1781, Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II issued the Patent of Toleration, which granted religious freedoms to Protestants in the Holy Roman Empire. October 21st, 1876, the West Publishing Company, founded by John B. West, published its first law reporter. Still around. The West, you got the West Law reporters, you still got West Law. 1876 is when they first started. Now, the syllabi, which promised to provide Minnesota lawyers with legal intelligence that was prompt, interesting, full, and at all times thoroughly reliable. Next, our legal quote of the day. "We are all servants of the law, to the end that I may be possible for us to be free." Cicero, 66 BC. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Take a look at this video. The woman who attacked a Madison Metro bus driver after being told the route wouldn't reach her destination has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Well, take a look at this newly released video. It shows Raveen Johnson attacking a Madison Metro bus driver on February 25th. The bus crashed into a restaurant and injured 2 people, and one of them was hospitalized. Johnson continued hitting the driver after the crash, and she pled guilty in August to second-degree recklessly endangering safety and attempted battery of a public transit officer. Like I said, Johnson was sentenced to 3 years in prison plus 3 years of extended supervision upon her release. And she is banned from all Madison Metro property, including the buses. Man, Miss Johnson, you are dumb. You ask the bus driver if this will get you to your route. He says no, and then you get angry at him. Truly, truly dumb. Miss Johnson, you are a dumb criminal of the day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.